the Great Stink, an event that took place in London during the summer of 1858, in which the weather was so hot, the smell of the human sewage in the River Thames finally became too great for the British to handle. The River Thames crosses through the middle of London and was used for centuries by the British as a dumping ground for human and industrial waste. It was the city's sewage system. The British had a habit of relieving themselves into what they called chamber pots, which they'd commonly empty out into the streets or the river when filled. This poor habit was not too dangerous when Britain's population was low, but it became a problem the more the population grew. The river simply could not get rid of all the waste. Night soil collectors were hired by the state. Originally, their job was to collect the night soil or human waste that filled those chamber pots, or that ended up on the banks of the River Thames, and take it to the countryside, where it was used to fertilise the farmland. These men were also known as gold finders, because they were fortunate enough to sift through the waste they collected in search for gold that the British citizen may have accidentally thrown out. The British had a habit of hiding their gold in their chamber pots, the idea being that most thieves would not go to the trouble of searching through human waste for gold. But occasionally, one would accidentally throw out both his waste and gold when emptying out his chamber pot. Due to this lack of overall hygiene and Britain's increasing population, cholera outbreaks were common, leading to the deaths of tens of thousands of people all over Britain. At high tides, the Thames' stinking, disease-ridden waters backed up into the tributary streams, like the Fleet and the Tyburn, which flowed beneath the capital's streets. And from these, it leaked into springs, wells, and other sources of drinking water. In 1848 alone, more than 50,000 people died due to cholera. The increasingly crowded conditions, poor water supply, and failure to deal with sewage and effluent meant that no British city was immune from the risk of cholera. During this outbreak, a Londoner at the time wrote a letter to the Times saying, "We live in much and filth. We ain't got no privets, no dust bines, no water splies, and no drain or sewer in the whole place. If the cholera comes, Lord help us." It was a nationwide issue. In 1842, Edwin Chadwick had noted in his Reports on the Sanitary Condition of the Labouring Population that Glasgow, where 50% of children would never reach their 5th birthday, was possibly the filthiest and unhealthiest of all British towns. He suggested improvements to both water supplies and sewage disposal to reduce disease and mortality rates. But the average British politician didn't care much for hygiene either. Anthony Wood described those who ran the courts of Oxford as being neat and gay in their apparel, yet they were very nasty and beastly, leaving at their departure their excrements in every corner, in chimneys, studies, coal-houses, cellars, rude, rough, whoremongers, vain, empty, careless. Although eventually, during the summer of 1858, the Great Stink became so bad that the British finally decided to do something about it. It was the hottest summer on record and amplified the stench of the sewage, bothering people more than it usually would. As the Times reported it, the intense heat had driven our legislators from those portions of their buildings which overlook the river. A few members indeed, bent upon investigating the matter to its very depth, ventured into the library, but they were instantaneously driven to retreat, each man with handkerchief to his nose. After trying everything other than practical hygiene, which included pouring chalk into the river, politicians eventually signed in a law to deal with the situation.